Today, again, it's not the only thing we can talk about, but I wanted to focus, at least have the meeting sort of have a focus on the value of IEEE membership and dealing with some issues that we've got related to membership. And in particular, I really believe that we face a crisis. We have a lot of surveys that have shown us that people are members of the IEEE for several reasons, and they may change over time, of course, as people's life situation and needs change. But one thing we have seen is that IEEE members who receive recognition and also get involved or engaged in some way tend to stay as members. They tend to see value then. We are suffering a loss of industry members. This is particularly true in the US, but it may be true elsewhere as well. Um, these are people involved in the practical application of technology to create wealth and satisfy human needs. And they're an essential part of the IEEE, in my opinion, and we need to do something about our loss of industry members. Also, the average age of IEEE members, particularly in region 1 through 6, is increasing. I believe I've heard it's somewhere in the range of in the 50s, people of 50 years older in that range. That's the average age of IEEE members, particularly in the US. I think that's an issue because unless we act, I think we got a crisis in our membership. As our members age, we become maybe more experienced, but we're less representative of the people in the workforce and the people who are doing things, and we're less representative in general of technologists, and we essentially will die if we don't deal with that trend. I think both the industry loss and also particularly, I think the loss or our inability to retain younger members is a hard one. We do have IEEE has although some of these things are under challenge, they've got financial resources. It's possible that we could use some of these resources essentially to invest to ensure our future, to help us attract, retain, and engage with our members. So I wrote 4 blogs, and that's my plan on each of these things on different aspects. I wrote something on what IEEE membership provided to me, and like was saying earlier, it's different things at different times. The greatest value, I think, from being part of an organization like the IEEE is the more you engage with it, and also with the people in the community where they become part of your network, part of your friends. And I joined an IEEE initially as a graduate student. I had a bachelor's in physics, and I joined the IEEE in order to get a discount to attend a conference. That was the first thing I joined. Time I joined, I remained a member, and in 2000, I decided to start my own company. I got laid off from a failing Silicon Valley company, and I've run that company ever since. And I found that at that particular point in time, the IEEE's then available group health plan actually was less expensive than the Cobra, which is my alternative, and it more than paid for membership. So another value that I personally got from my IEEE member. Being an IEEE volunteer leader enabled me to refine networking skills, and the ability to work with people. I see that as there's these social things. It's not the basis of IEEE, but it's something because we are a community that you can get by interacting with me, and it allowed me to create a number of long-time relationships with people I've met, some who are on our webinar here. And some of those relationships led to interesting projects, even on new technologies, and some I've got some paying work from. And all of them, I think, have enriched my life, and I've very much enjoyed the community of people that I've been able to make. And that's my personal experience. So some things I'm thinking we ought to deal with. These are again some of the themes that I went through in some of these blogs I've been writing. Can we make senior member elevation easier? Studies of IEEE membership show that members who are recognized for accomplishments, in particular for being senior members, they tend to stay. It's another way in which we engage with our members. And many people I've seen who'd qualify for senior membership never get that recognition. It's often because I think particularly this is true in industry that they can't find senior members or fellows who can be their endorsers. Maybe a nominator, but at least the endorser. And then for those of you that have done senior memberships, been involved in that, if you've got someone's CV, you can basically do that in about 5 minutes. If they've done useful work for 10 years, related fields to the IEEE, then they should be able to become senior members. I believe we need to make it easier for qualified IEEE senior membership candidates to find endorsers at the very least, so we can recognize their accomplishments and keep them engaged in the IEEE. So that's one thing I think we ought to be doing, or maybe, maybe we could look at 2 instead of 3 senior members and fellows, but make it easier for people to connect up and to be able to do that. Also, I think we need to do something about gaining back IEEE industry members. There's probably a lot of factors in why we've been losing members. And was president of IEEE regions 1 through 6. We had a lot of discussion on this, but apparently overall IEEE private industry membership has fallen about 53% since 2000. And we need to look how we can bring industry members back into the IEEE. Are there services and offerings we currently have that are of interest to industry? Can we persuade companies to encourage and fund their employees' membership in the IEEE? What do we got that they value? What can we do that they would value? And then this point about investing in IEEE membership. In the US regions, student membership, including graduate students, declined over 20% since its peak in 2003. At the same time, with US government statistics, IEEE student membership is only about 4.3% of that potential total market of electrical, computer engineering, and computer science college students. So our potential penetration of that market, our penetration of that potential market is not very high. Our young professional membership retention is also very poor. Part of this one factor, although we're not poorly paid, the economics can be a factor in people, and the rapid rise in the price of membership going from a student to a full member appears to be a factor. But the other thing is that you can't just bring people on board. You've got to engage with them. So finding ways of better to engage with young professionals and with students, letting them know what IEEE is, what it can offer you. And if we can recruit more IEEE students and retain young professionals longer, and then engage with them in a way that encourages them to participate, I think we can reverse this aging trend. And I'm hoping that we can reinvigorate the IEEE and have it remain a vital part of society for some time to come. So MGA has been doing some pilot studies and more gradual increases in YP membership dues, and they did see improved IEEE membership retention as a result. So they may be taking steps soon to perhaps raise those dues gradually over a 3 or 4 year period. In 2020, during the COVID pandemic, when with the colleges going to remote learning, student membership tumbled. The board of directors decided in November of 2019, November of 2020, that they would, or decided in 2020 anyway, that they would offer a 50% discount for the 2021 membership year. And that has resulted in a significant recovery in our student membership this year. So the finances do seem to matter, even though it may not be totally logical why it should for folks like us. I think we should keep the price of student membership low. I'm thinking that myself. It increases our pool of potential higher grade members down the road. It's easier for them to become it. And then if we combine that with better engagement with them and letting them know that IEEE is more than a student club, I think it could help us. Also, increasing YP dues gradually over a 3 to 4 year period while doing a focused method of engaging and working with getting them involved, I think could also be of value. But it's not enough just to keep these members. We also need to fund efforts to show our student members, again, that we're more than a student club, and to welcome YPs, particularly in their local section, and engage with them there and offer them interesting volunteer opportunities, or ways that they can do interesting stuff. And that's why I think we need to look at IEEE as a community and look at community efforts at this local level and the creation of new tools that may help us for membership engagement and for in doing interesting ad hoc activities, say at the local sectional level. And we might be now the cost of membership, apparently the student dues and even may not cover that. So it's this is an example of one of these investments we might make in order to hopefully ensure the longevity of the IEEE. So I think we need to act now to save the IEEE. Members create enormous value for the IEEE, all the different things we do. And also from them, we get the volunteers who do even more and provide more value to the IEEE. IEEE is aging. If we can't gain and retain younger folks, IEEE will die. We must have stronger connections, I believe, with provide value to members working in industry in order for us to stay relevant. And we've got to increase our recognition of members, such as senior membership, particularly in industry. And I think we can save and revitalize the IEEE, but we need to act now. So Thank you. And I'm going to give up this sharing, and I'd love to hear from you folks and talk to you about this, your ideas, your thoughts, your responses. Found it useful during college days, perhaps when I was in a bigger company offering free membership. At my current work, I have IEEE Explore membership. I think he means the person gets it through their company. And
Right.
I've never used the other features of IEEE membership. So I do not see a value in paying for membership. He says a person says they'd like to be part of the IEEE community at a free basic member with no bells and whistles. So it actually is possible for non-members to get involved to some extent in local IEEE activities. There's roles within local section chapters that a non-member can help with, like maybe finding speakers and things of that sort. However, I'm hoping that once somebody starts working with other IEEE members and being part of that community, that they would find a greater value in playing a more impactful role. And in fact, if you do want to be an officer of, say, a chapter or even a section, you do need to be an IEEE member
Right.
to be able to do that. So you can get involved in IEEE things. You can go to conferences. You pay to go to conferences. Local section meetings are generally free. At least they certainly are in Santa Clara Valley,
Yeah.
or a minimal charge. And I think it's a good way to get to know the people, see if you like them, and if IEEE is something you'd like to get involved in. And I'm hoping that if you do that, that we will make it interesting enough that you will want to become part of our community. You got
And,
another one here.
and
Sorry.
if I could add one, there are also there are communities within IEEE that you can join as a non-member. Also, I can share some information on that with you if you send me a message. I would encourage people to think about things beyond just the technical parts. My original motivation to join IEEE was the huge discount on group term life insurance, because IEEE is such a large organization. Insurance costs are way lower than any other technical organization or anything I could get on the open market. So there's a lot of reasons.
There is another question here now. Is there a way to create a membership level that is between senior member and fellow, particularly mentioning targeting mid-career industry members? There's been a lot of discussion of doing things like that, and so far it's not been successful. But I'm hoping that we can do more things that will address the needs of our of people in industry. And I think senior member is one thing. I'd love to see us be able to recognize people for another level of that. Fellow is a possibility, and there actually is efforts going on right now within IEEE to increase our industry fellow, our industry fellows who come from industry, and to increase the level of that, and get more nominations, good nominations, etc. I certainly think that we need to be looking at things like this. Recognition of people's accomplishments is something a professional society can offer. And I think it's something that we need to be doing, and to create value for our members. And I think it'd be something that provided more levels than just the 3 levels, or maybe 4 levels to student membership, is not a bad idea.
Are you an IEEE fellow, Tom?
I am, yeah.
What was the process like?
It's hard. Actually, I had to do a few times before I got it. I'm a storage and memory guy, but and it was related to that and consumer electronics. So, but it actually took a few tries, and it was actually finding somebody, because you can't nominate yourself. It's finding someone who's good at writing nominations. That made a big difference.
Yep.
Finally being successful.
But senior member that you talked about is a really easy process, and we often do these at meetings, or even virtually online, that we have done them in the past year or so. It can be a very easy process to reach out.
Okay, I got a few questions here now. So IEEE has big reserves. How much is enough? The kind of investments that we're talking about here, they're relative. If we were to especially work on the investing in IEEE membership, especially the YPs and students, it's a bigger expense. We want to hit the higher grade members, but if we're doing something with them, I think it's very affordable. I think we're talking at a few $1 million, and IEEE, generates pretty significant revenues over the year, and actually does have reserves that can help to do that. And I think, we need to think about doing things like that. Evaluate them carefully, and make decisions that involves us to invest in ourselves and invest in our future. Thanks. Now there's another question here.
I'm not an engineer at all.
Yeah.
I'm a physicist. Of course, when they hire a physicist or a chemist in the Silicon Valley, our official work title uses the word engineer, and I think of that as being a way to appease the shareholders and the executives so that they don't see so many headcount being attributed to PhDs who they think may be irrelevant and unnecessary. The Ask Me business with the $10 for students, I know that there are things kind of like that in IEEE. Tom, you can comment on that. And just briefly to Steve, I have a couple of colleagues from my years at Western Digital who are fellows. So we might want to look into that.
Yeah, there are interesting things on the chat. And of course, everybody who's on here can look at that.
Yeah.
So there's a question. There is a comment here, and actually, it's one that I think that you made, Daniel, which is the percentage of IEEE revenue that comes from membership dues. It is indeed, it's about the fourth down in terms of the revenue sources.
Nice.
Publications and conferences are number one. And of course, the thing that makes publications and conferences possible are people that write stuff. Many of them members, many of them volunteers, or review things. That's certainly a volunteer activity. And I think it's one of those areas where we need to, I think if you don't pay anything, right, then it has no value. But what is it that we charge, or can, here's another thought, can people do volunteer work that gives them essentially value that they can use to reduce their membership fees, for example? I mean, the things we might think about is options of things we could do, which might actually encourage even more volunteer work. Somehow, even if it's not a lot of money, people are motivated by money. It's just, I guess it's part of the way we're built. Is that you may not be that bad off, but on the other hand, if you can save $10 doing something, a lot of people will find that worthwhile. So maybe there's something worth exploring with things like that as possibilities.
I mean, since you're talking about dollars, I mean, you can join IEEE at this point for 50%, I believe, of the usual fee, because we're 50% through the year.
That's right. And actually, it's 50% right now. And that'll get you a member all the way through February, whenever they do the termination if you don't renew. So yeah, right now it's a very good deal if someone wants to try being a member and hasn't been before. And by the way, Daniel mentions he's a physicist. Kim, you're a mechanical engineer by background.
I am too. In fact, I know Elise who's asking this question. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah. There are, I don't remember the exact statistics, but I think there's a sizable amount of IEEE members who are not electrical engineers, not electrical or electronic engineers. There's people that do software, people that do computer stuff of various sorts, people who are mechanical background, or mechanical electrical background, physicists. I originally started out in physics, right? That was my bachelor's degree. So IEEE is the largest technical professional organization in the world. And it represents more than just, the original sort of people that used to be part of it, so it's open to a lot of people to be part of it. Elsie mentioned some really interesting ideas about paying students to come to things, which is another interesting idea.
Elise.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Elise. Yeah.
Tom, maybe mention before you go to the next question, how many societies and chapters are there in IEEE, and how many are represented here in Silicon Valley? I think you'll find an impressive number there.
So I think you're saying societies and councils. that
Yeah.
sort of the
Yeah,
larger organizations in IEEE. And I believe the number, I think it's like 42 of them right now. Well, in the Bay Area, we have probably 30 some.
30 something is my
Yeah.
number. Yeah.
When I was chair of the Sections Congress in San Francisco, actually, we wanted to give people exposure to, in 2011, wanted to give people exposure to different parts of IEEE. And we figured that'd be an inexpensive way to expose people to a lot of parts of TAB who were involved in sections, the people that come to Sections Congress. And so we reserved a space at the Computer History Museum, and we had the local chapters have booths there, things that represent what they do. The robotics guys had robots running around, the RAS folks, you know, the magnetic people were there, Daniel. We had the Magnetic Society there. We had, you know, and it was very, I think it was very interesting. It was actually sort of using local resources and local folks, giving them exposure to people from outside the Bay Area, but also giving those people visiting exposure to more parts of the IEEE than they might otherwise interact with at the time.
What do you think about multidisciplinary aspects and the potential for collaboration with mechanical engineers and SAE vehicles, materials people? It's pretty rich opportunities there, wouldn't you say?
I think it's pretty rich. And the other thing I think we should be doing, if we're really going to reach out to industry, is connections with trade organizations, you know, basically industry trade groups, and also trade shows of various sorts that we should, you know, can we do some partnerships with them? Can we do, can that be part of our trying to draw in companies, finding things we can work on in common, you know, interacting with them and participating in events, you know, maybe providing speakers for trade shows. You know, we've already done some of that sort of thing. I think we could expand on that, you know, getting involved in more than the academic sort of events. If we had more exposure there, I think it could be good for us.
Well, like the Consumer Electronics Society and the Vehicular Technology Society. I mean, these are things that have really tight ties to industry folks. There's certainly academic and research aspects too, but, you know, truly industry connected in every way.
Yeah, and I have seen IEEE at some of these events for several years, actually until just before the COVID. They were at the CES show in Las Vegas. And I think that was, and they had some nice booth space there. You know, I think actually that was pretty good exposure. I don't know if we can quantify what that did to membership, but if nothing else, more people knew about who we are and what we are. And I think we need to do more of that. And that's part of, we need to do more outreach. You know, a lot of us come from, you know, sort of bookish background and, you know, more introverted than extroverted. But I think we need to maybe get out of our comfort zone a bit and let other people know about what technologists do and the value they have, you know, and find out, you know, let them know that, let parents know that it's their children, you know, whether they're boys or girls, they can be engineers, they can accomplish things, they can do things, and IEEE can be a way that, a method for helping those people. I think that's the kind of thing that we need to be thinking about, you know, what can we do to be a broader part of our community? It may go, you know, outside of our regular comfort zone, but I think it's really important to do that.
Tom, there are a lot of Silicon Valley companies that are very active in the communities, in the local community through their CSR program. And I often wore Western Digital t-shirts to events, whether we were cleaning up the Guadalupe River or volunteering as instructors at a local middle school, or as mentors for a bunch of boys in some kind of local city council meeting favoring science and technology. But for some of the more prolonged projects, like the teaching in the middle schools, I wore my IEEE jerseys now and then as well, and did a little bit of broadcasting. There are a lot of opportunities for funded, not to mention unfunded, but even funded outreach programs in our communities. Of course, I need to advertise SITE here, and Tim can tell you all about SITE as well. But that's one way of being out there. I wanted also just to comment briefly, this is sort of an overlap of Tim's question or suggestion that we look into membership strategies for SAE and ASME, and the remark from Elise about ASME, that some of these things come together because within the site and HAC program in IEEE, there was a strong collaboration with ASME because there was a joint development of a website with resources for people who are doing development work in third world countries. So that was a really cool joint project that lasted for quite a while. I think that ASME is now producing or pushing that on their own. Something else is that, at least if you're still a member of ASME, they maybe need to push a little bit harder in Brazil, because I'm familiar with a number of mechanical engineering students who are IEEE members in Brazil. I don't even know if they've heard of ASME, but that's just sort of anecdotal. So
Well, and
I'll mute myself.
There's a question that Tim raises, which is an important one, is that what's happening to IEEE is not just, our loss of membership, particularly in the US. It may be somewhat different elsewhere, but we're not the only ones experiencing this.
Right.
I think ASME has had trouble with this. ACM even, I think, has problems with membership. It's something about the way that younger folks are doing things versus the way that we did things when we joined the IEEE. And I think we need to take a look at what has value for those younger members. How can we pull them in? How can we engage? And maybe there's things they want to do that we're not doing yet, and we need to find that out.
Well, in the networking aspects and the potential for positive aspects on their career and making of contacts for their career, those are things that I think are huge. And those aren't even the technical things. They just drive around the meetings and interactions with other members in societies and that kind of thing. I've gotten tremendous value out of that.
Now there's one more comment here I just want to relate. IEEE doing things with major trade shows. We have done that. I gave some examples. He mentioned something with a wireless communications. I don't know what that one is, but actually IEEE Region 6, and particularly the San Francisco Bay Area Council, which are the three sections in the San Francisco Bay Area, and the LA Council, used to put on something called WestCon for like decades. And it was a really big trade show. And actually it was the major source of funds for these two areas in California for their IEEE sections. So we've had some experience in that, but we're not doing things like that right now. And maybe we need to think about getting more engaged in trade shows and having a lot more activity. We've got some of that. Could we do more? And there's a question here. As you noted, fellow is a very difficult process. Industry experience for some members can be quite broad over time. Some in industry can, over their career, cover the specialties of many societies. So the question is there a way to help potential industry fellow nominees find someone who may have industry experience? The current fellows list is difficult to parse in this regard. Actually, there is the IEEE board series was just finished up a week or so ago. And there's a lot of talk about what can we do in the fellows program to make it easier to get industry members to become fellows. And one of the things is how can we connect? How can we find people that want to be nominated as fellows? How can we help them? How do you do a successful nomination? And then who are references who would be good? And I think there's work going on perhaps to create groups and pools of folks that you can use to help find that. So I think we need to do that in senior membership, to help people. And in fact, even in smaller sections may not have that many, maybe we can have broader groups that are broader lists that are available where people can find senior members, endorsers. But I think we need to do something like that also in terms of the fellows. And there's work going on, I believe, to be addressing that. I'm part of the IEEE Industry Engagement Committee, and I know there's been discussion of that. There's an actual IEEE board ad hoc that is working and looking at things of that sort. So I think it's a very good question. I think it's something we need to do.
One thing I think we can learn from ASME, I became an ASME fellow a few years back. ASME fellow has a category that centers around leadership, actually, and volunteer activities. I think that's less so in IEEE, and that could be something that could be increased, and that's definitely one other path into that category. Less the a little less the top technical expert and a little more of a person who's been influential and contributed to the organization.
Well, there's several categories of IEEE fellows, right? And some
Yes.
are more industrial oriented. They try to make them more industrial oriented than others. And part of the issue also is it's not just finding the nominators, but can we get more of the fellow evaluators that are from industry that will understand, and there's even been some discussion. There may be differences between cultures. Some cultures may not brag about all their accomplishments the way, say, people from other cultures would. Will they be evaluated the same, or can you get someone who sort of understands that culture and can understand that this person really has accomplished a lot, even though they don't feel like they can say they have because of their background. I think we need to, create greater sensitivities to these kind of things. In particular, I think it's important in industry. Academics, they kind of have a path. They sort of got this this thing greased, but on the industry side, I think we don't have as good a process, and I think we could do a lot to improve that. And I think some of it might be that we do some things that are related to industry or related to even different cultural areas. One of the things, by the way, that on the senior member thing, that so I'm part of this careers working group in the IEEE Industry Engagement Committee. It's an IEEE board committee. And one of the things we're talking about with senior membership, and I think we got at least one guy on the committees with the company, is can we start a senior membership campaign within a company, and actually try to find the IEEE members in the company, and if they aren't senior members, then work to elevate them to become senior members. Another example of how you can get these little communities within IEEE, that could try to help each other and do good things, and also increase probably the visibility of IEEE within that company by doing that.
Right. Do you think those are things that you can influence as president of IEEE, Tom?
At the very least, I would encourage and welcome things like that. I think, and I think part of that is just enabling and letting people know that there are, that you can do things. And the other thing is better communication. One of the things on senior membership is some people think if you're a senior member, you're paying more money. No, it's the same price, right?
Yeah.
But there's things like that, is that, how can you clarify things and make it clear to people? This is just to honor and respect you for what you've done. We're not trying to charge you more money.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So there's things we could do a lot better. And I think as president, at the very least, I would want to try to make IEEE more valuable to our members, to try to engage with members' needs, and as much as possible to move us forward in terms of engaging with younger members, encouraging them and recruiting in more of them, and changing those demographics. I think we're in a crisis. If we don't do something about these demographics, we'll die with our oldest members. We need to address that professional societies can still have a great value, and we need to figure out what that value is and how to do it right.
Tim Lee asked a question that kind of also goes along that line. He asked, how do the IEEE membership strategies differ from other societies like SAE or ASME or ASM? What can we learn from them? How can things be potentially improved for all?
Yeah, so I think there are definite possibilities, things we can learn for other groups. And I think we're not the only group that's experiencing these problems, right? And I think there's probably more that we could gain from talking with each other about what works and what doesn't work than from trying to compete with each other. And so I think it's very worthwhile for us to find out if there's something that people that ASME is doing that we could be doing. By all means, let's try those out. Let's do experiments. Let's see what engages the young folks, makes them excited to be to work with us. And
for example, Elise is a past chair of the ASME section here in Santa Clara Valley. Yeah. I mean, one thing that I've seen with some organizations is that they have certain reciprocity, between membership in one group to the other. Has that ever been considered within IEEE to have any reciprocity with other groups or shared membership type arrangement?
There are some of those. I know that I'm a member of a computer society and an ACM, right? And I know that there's a reciprocity agreement. I think you get something like $10 off, ACM membership if you're a computer society member, for example. Then ACM members get a discount to be a member of the computer society. So I know there are some of those. I don't think we have a broader one in the IEEE like that, but it's certainly something that I think we can consider.
And Tim also asks, is it time to overhaul the TAB Technical Advisory Board, I believe it is, and the MGA separation? Is this part of the problem?
Time to overhaul the TAB MGA separation. I think part of it is we need to look yes, Tim, I really think that we need to see ourselves as we are IEEE, and TAB wouldn't exist without members, and the members get value from TAB. That there's a mutual reciprocity here, and I really think that we need to, don't build silos. Let's break down those barriers. Let's talk about what we can do together to make IEEE so it meets the needs of today's people, and especially of those younger folks, so we can bring them into the group. There's a question here in the Q&A. Another example, by the way, on this whole membership thing, and it's community and the idea of how we can do things in community. When I was director of IEEE Region 6, which is the Western United States, for those who may not know, I started a program, and we were losing members, and we had people that didn't renew their membership. And so I started a program when I was director to have people in sections, and I was working with IEEE membership on doing this, but have people in sections get a list of folks, volunteers in sections, get a list of folks to try to contact, email or phone calls of people who had not renewed their membership, and talk to them about that. And we actually had a script, and we had a spreadsheet where we would gather the information, and the script would, like, it wasn't just we want you back sort of thing. It was like, gosh, what do we do? What should we have done that we didn't do? What didn't you find of value, or what was a problem for you? It was kind of a real conversation, and it was somebody in the section who didn't renew, called by somebody in the section. That's why I'm saying it's sort of community based. Actually, what happened from that is there were a number of people, because I had two of these lists of 10 people each. I contacted the Santa Clara Valley section. A lot of people forgot to renew their membership, or thought they had, or thought someone else had renewed it for them. And, and we actually ended up with something like a 2 or 3% increase in our recovery rate just from a few sections doing this in Region 6 by doing this. So the community can really matter, and people engaging with other people in that same geographical area in the same section can mean a lot to people if you do it right, and so I think that's the kind of things we could do. There's things we can do in the bigger IEEE, but there's a lot of stuff we can do at the local IEEE. And I think it's really important that we think about doing those things and try to find practices and methods that make that possible.
Did you find value in making those calls in terms of networking and new contacts that you made?
Oh yeah. So one person on my list was Gordon Moore.
He's kind of an important guy.
He's an IEEE Life Fellow, right? Plus he's got
Right.
IEEE medals and stuff. And when you're a life member, you don't pay anything, but you have to every year tell them you want to renew your membership.
Right.
And apparently he didn't do it that year. And they didn't have his email address, didn't have his phone number, but I found his foundation contact information there. I called them up, and they said they'd get a hold of him and find out if he wants to renew his free membership. And so we recovered him. So yeah, I made some interesting contacts.
And who is Gordon Moore again, Tom?
Gordon Moore is the guy that Moore's Law is named after. He was one of the founders of Intel. Yeah. So, and was involved in the semiconductor industry, and basically created an observation that was basically treated as if it was a law, that we would about double the density of the number of transistors on a chip every 3 years. So,
needless to say, a very influential fellow, and part of some IEEE milestones, I believe, right, on the semiconductor side.
yeah. And recently I got invited because, people found out I'm running for IEEE president-elect, and they wanted to show me things. Like, this is the Western Florida section invited me to participate in one of their senior member elevation events. And it was really interesting the way they did it. It's all virtual. And they had 3 senior members or fellows that would go off into a virtual room with the nominee, and they'd talk to them about, what they'd done. They had the resumes, but they talked to them about what they'd done, and actually physically meet them. And I thought that was just so cool the way they did that. And the guy who was running this virtual event let me sample and just listen to them in these various groups where they were talking like that. And I just thought that's a cool idea, because it's, you're actually getting to know somebody by doing something like that. And they get to know you maybe a little bit too. So
you can use the web meeting type of technology to facilitate something, even if you're not in the same physical place. Then you can have a direct interaction.
Yep. So I think there's a lot of interesting ideas and things that we can do. Here's Elise. That the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation funded the Maker Camp streaming podcast was kicked off today. Oh, I didn't know that. Wow. Oh, but they said it was just the Betty Moore Foundation.
Yeah, thanks for that, Elise. That's good information here.
Cool.
Yeah, Elise has been very active with things like Maker, Faire, and I think First Robotics and things like that. So she's really done a lot.
So I was our local IEEE section in the Santa Clara Valley. We've had a number of times that we've been active with the Maker Faire that used to be in San Mateo.
Right.
Have a booth there. I was involved in several of those. That was just so fun. And that's something else that we need to be looking at. And part of that's the general outreach, but it's participating in STEM activities and getting more people, parents and kids, interested in science and technology and what it can do, and to think of it as something they could do as their career.
Well, and what do you think about that? I mean, parents who are technical folks, or things like that, going into schools, doing things, a little volunteer time, helpful in maybe encouraging that next generation to look at that.
I think it's very important. For instance, something that we could try to encourage our life members to do things like that, for example, or going into schools has gotten a lot very complicated, because you have to do all the security safety stuff that they do nowadays. But if there's some way that we could have resources of people with a lot of experience, that could help younger folks and demonstrate things that are interesting in science. There's a guy, actually an old friend of mine in the Magnetic Society. Danny, you may know him. Remember, is it Fred Moore, I think his name was? And he used to do this magnetic magic show. And it was really cool. He had all kinds of magnetic experiments he would do, in front of people. And things like that, I think that we could be doing to help raise the visibility of the kind of stuff we do and get people interested in it.
Well, and don't you think, our technology, such as having web meetings, I mean, going in person is great, but you're right. Sometimes there's restrictions or things to overcome. COVID put a lot of those barriers in our way, and we began to overcome it with, some things like this. Mm-hmm. There's still a lot you can do. It's not impossible, certainly.
Right. And now actually we're a lot more comfortable with these remote tools. We can even use this for things like that, and that way people don't have to travel to be able to participate or interact with each other, at least at some level,
And students also, for that matter.
Elise mentions that she's doing a small maker festival in San Jose, October 16th at the Coyote Grange Hall. Where is that, by the way?
Yeah.
Anyone want to help out? She asks, and
All
I would
right.
love to help if the timing works out. I'd love to help you out. I think those things are just so fun to go to it.
Yeah. Yeah. At least send me a message on that, and we can certainly circulate
Oh,
it
South,
within some of the
South.
groups.
Okay.
South San Jose, she says.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, especially I think Kim has some good lists that might be able to get some volunteers. Is that what you're looking? Here's a question. Actually, I've had a number of people ask about this, and it has been discussed, as they say, over the years. Allowing members to pay dues quarterly, for instance, by automatic charges that are credit card. I think we ought to be doing this. When I was on the MGA board, which is a group that figures out to do this, we were trying to get MGA to commit to doing it. We actually passed resolutions to get them to do it, but they didn't. The other thing that might be interesting is instead of having membership be on a only one time basis, they got a deadline to do it. Can we just have a rotating membership? Your membership ends when after a year you've been a member, right? Plus some grace period or something. I think those are all things that are worth looking at. I think we should have an honest evaluation. Would that help us? And I think if we did it, that those really could. I think a lot of people paying monthly is a lot easier. It's like your Netflix subscription versus having.
Yeah. Exactly.
A quick question. What are your thoughts on the whole Facebook, LinkedIn type model where it's free membership, but the revenue comes some other way, especially when membership dues is only number 4 in our list. So why are we focusing on that?
Yeah, I think we ought to be taking looks at new categories. Someone mentioned before, can we have something that's between fellow and senior member? But also, could we do something where we have an attachment to people that doesn't cost them anything, but they're like a camp follower? They're like they're part of our community in some sense. They may not be able to do everything the members do, but we engage with them in some more formal way. I think it's a very good possibility we could do something like that, and maybe we could build on that. There's been a lot of discussions. Could you create a model where you sort of buy into things as you go through it? I don't know if that'd work with IEEE, but I certainly think that we could be doing something that would allow more people to be more formally connected with us. To actually have a what do you call that? A sales, a list of people that you can go at, contact about opportunities, things of that sort. I can't remember the word for it. Yeah, but I think we definitely need to create new ways in which we can interact with folks and interact with more people and draw them into becoming a bigger part of our community. Hopefully, if they find that we really are compelling and interesting. But first, let them, give them exposure. And I think, Gora, that would be a very good way of doing something like that.
I think Collaboratech was hoped to be some of that because non-IEEE members could participate there too, could join groups, network, things of that sort. But yeah, it seems like it could certainly be pushed down more to our societies and chapters, and certainly anybody's free to attend, meetings, and we ought to, make people aware of the e-grid where all the stuff in our Santa Clara Valley, San Francisco area are all listed every month, upcoming items that we can let people know about.
So there's a question here on professional licensure. For some IEEE members, it's an important part of what they do and how they do their business. So the question is there a way to help members understand where this might be important or essential? And could we start during the education time? I think we could do a better job. Certain professions in particular, or certain types of engineering in particular, safety and health concerns that basically someone has to have a license or work with someone who has a license in order to be able to do work in those areas. I think it is an important area. It's something we should help people understand, and also understand the resources that IEEE may have that can help people, in going after a license, for example. Or in IEEE USA, they have been involved in licensure within the US, and they definitely have, they've had resources for helping people with with their license, and they actually have been involved in doing some of the license exams or making some of the license exams as well. So I think there are some resources. I think we could do probably more to let people know about that than we're doing already.
I can add there. I'm a professional engineer in mechanical, and
I think you're licensed. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and a lot of us in the IEEE CNSV, the consultants network, a lot of people there are licensed, mechanical, electrical, and other areas. So, you know, get in touch with me and we can talk about that more. It's definitely essential, like Tom said, life safety type things like power, you know, power generation, power transmission types of things, you know, high voltage, very life safety conscious. There are a lot of things where it's essential. If you're designing buildings, like the structural engineer who designed the Florida condo might have some real licensing problems, you know, but that's a place where you have to have, you have to have licensing. You have to be able to sign off. And for some consulting and testifying aspects, you need a license. Some states have rules like this. So there's a lot of places where it comes in.
Just taking up on what Tim was saying, we have too many silos within IEEE in terms of these tabs and MGAs and SAs and all of different.
Yeah.
Whereas for an outsider, it's IEEE. So
yeah.
I always talk about this outside in and inside out view. We spend too much time looking, you know, from inside looking outside and trying to solve, whereas your neighbor only needs to know your IEEE. How do we solve that?
Yeah, you know, this internal stuff mainly matters to us just because we know about it, you know, but the outside world has no clue about this stuff. And even a lot of IEEE members don't have any clue about the complexity, which is IEEE. We need to find better ways of working together to do things that we really need to be doing, you know, and one of those is because that's the theme of our meeting, is membership and bringing in the next generation. And I think it's just so crucial that we do that. Should exceptions be made to the IEEE rules and holding classified meetings? I think there's times when that may make sense. I think actually that there are some events, IEEE events that go on where they do, where they have sessions, for example, you know, where things are classified. You know, I guess and I know what. I don't totally understand all the concerns with that through the IEEE. I think it may have to do with, you know, that generally IEEE stuff should be open. So that may be the big issue there. But I think it's something that, you know, where it makes sense, you know, exploring that and seeing what can be done with that. And I think there are actually some sessions and some events that where that basically they are classified, and only the people that are qualified can be in on those meetings and discussions.
What would the type of application be for that? I mean, we're not talking about national security classified necessarily, are we? We're talking about more proprietary information.
No, I think that's what he's talking about, is national security.
National security aspects. Okay,
yeah.
Like hacking of Colonial Pipeline and things like that.
Or maybe how to build weapon systems or things, you know, various things like that.
Right. Can people connect with you on LinkedIn and other social media?
Thanks for reminding me, Kim. You can indeed. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, and also on Facebook. In particular, LinkedIn, I'm very open to you know, connecting with people, and Twitter as well. Well, Twitter you just follow, but
it's very valuable. I mean, think about starting your connection to the next IEEE president right now. You know, this is a grassroots effort there.
Thank you, Kim. And yeah, and if you do join my connect with me on LinkedIn, and if I'm saying something that you think is interesting or worth discussion with your friends and colleagues, you know, if you would forward those messages to your contacts, that helps to increase the number of people that are thinking about what I think are some very important topics that we need to be considering.
Yeah. And last, Tom, I'll ask if you have any last remarks, but certainly ask folks that have joined the call today, share this with your friends, you know, because a lot of these things, we're talking about IEEE activities here, but a lot of these things apply to any of the organizations. And especially when you're talking about integration and interaction between organizations, I think everything that Tom is doing here is right on target, and ideas can percolate both ways, certainly. So Tom, any other comments from you before we wrap up?
I really appreciate people joining us here today. It's right after 4th of July, and I know there's probably a lot of people are still traveling. But I think it's good to get started. I feel that it's important to be able to interact with people like this, and I look forward to these future series of meetings to talk about important topics. This one is a membership. The next one is on sections. Then I want to do one on industry, then on inclusion and diversity, and the final one, if I've got I'm thinking what I'm calling adventure, which is talking about the future and some of the technologies and development, where it may take us, and have a dialogue with people on that if you're interested in those topics. So, but the thing to remember is tomcoughlin.com. /IEEE, and that's COUGHLIN.
And you are truly not the Tom Coughlin who used to coach the National Football League New York Giants, are you?
I am not, yes, but I do have the website.
Yes, and he doesn't.
And he doesn't, yes. Thanks, folks.